You're looking at the dominant entertainment medium of the day, complete with screeching high-speed chases and explosive gunplay. But no, it's not a movie. It's a game. An interactive video game.
You go through the same process you would in making a great film, but then you apply the technology. And what you must do with the technology is make it simple, hot, and deep.
Games have been with us since the beginning of time, but these are the first games to use computer technology. In fact, they don't just use it, they drive it.
If it weren't for video games, you wouldn't have the computer or internet revolution that you have today. If it weren't for video games humanizing computers, you wouldn't see them in everybody's home.
Unlike any games before in history, these games play with you, one-on-one, in their world, not yours. A virtual world of 3D graphics and stereo sound, capable of inspiring an emotional, physical, and even psychological experience.
A video game is, I guess it's a joyride to insanity. It's a journey to, our inner nightmares and fantasies.
But they weren't always so sophisticated. Once, they were nothing more than a beam of light on a cathode ray tube. How they evolved into high-tech computer art and science is the story of humankind's urge to play, and of the growth of computers into today's dominant medium. What began as a play-inspired tinkering at an MIT computer has turned into a billion-dollar industry, offering thousands of software titles and a variety of hardware platforms for the amusement of millions. And it all happened just for the fun of it. In living rooms across the United States, the youth of America and the young at heart are playing games, video games. Home computers and television sets fed by game consoles have become the virtual playground for a new generation. They're full of action and adventure, battles between good and evil, quests and cyber shootouts, and all kinds of races and sports contests. For many, this is a world so much bigger in scope and richer in possibilities that there's no better place to play.
What did they get?
The game space becomes a virtual play space. It becomes an environment they can do the things that boys used to do in their imagination, sitting in their backyard in suburban America. They can take risks. They can take challenges. They can compete with each other. They can have larger-than-life blood and thunder adventure that really gets the blood pumping.
Video games are the virtual place to hang out, a kind of electronic alleyway where boys will be boys and fantasies will come to virtual life. Are you in love with her?
Love? Love is for the living, Sal. I'm only after her for one reason. She's my ticket out of here.
You are there, you are inside, you are making decisions, you are seeing the results of what you are doing, you're having a fantasy and a spectacular experience.
For all their fantasy, video games duplicate reality in exacting detail. Just how they do that is a marvel of several different technologies that have emerged since the birth of video games in the early 60s. One of the most essential is something called texture mapping. It turns the game into a three-dimensional, photorealistic, immersive experience.
In the 1980s, games, there was no texture mapping. And when you created an object, if you had a spacecraft, it would just be plain. There wouldn't be any detail on the surfaces. We went to some of the one of the MIT tech libraries, and saw that on the high-end supercomputers and graphic workstations, they were doing texture mapping. And we did some trials to see whether we could do that on a PC at the time. This is in 1990. Found out, yes, it would actually work.
When the Trade Federation Viceroy arrives, we must convince him to leave the system. Be prepared for the unexpected. The room is filling with poison gas.
Texture mapping adds photorealism to a game. It's eye-catching and beautiful. It offers the look and feel of real worlds. It grew out of the development of more powerful computer microprocessors and advanced games beyond monochrome images.
You can take a texture and instead of putting it on a cube, you're putting it on a more rounded sphere that maybe has a nose and some other details of the shape, and then the textures can be much more detailed. And all of a sudden you have this very real-looking character, or real-looking desk, or real-looking chandelier, and it's really incredible. And then once it's in the engine, and it has all its motions put on it, and it has its sound, it's really very immersive. All of a sudden you're walking and talking to this person that, there's just a cube.
A computer-simulated game takes an average of 24 months of full-time work from a staff of 20. There are thousands of details, and at times, things go wrong, as they did in the texture mapping of a torpedo attack sequence for a combat simulation game.
Torpedoes are dropping, they're hitting the water, right? And they're making splashes, right? Yet, when they hit an object, they pass right through, okay? We need that fixed right away. Well, it turns out that our boats, right, for rendering purposes and for cheating purposes, we don't render the keels under the water. So what's happening is the torpedo, which is traveling at 15 feet under the water, as it should in real life, because we're simulating a torpedo, is missing the boat. From a water perspective, looking at the water, you wouldn't see underneath the boat. So now it's, oh God, we have to go back and redo the model, right? We have to add, underneath to the model so that the torpedo knows to hit the boat and to blow it up.
When it's done, the game's environments are so real, there's no need to suspend disbelief. It looks like the real thing. But not only have the game environments reached a level of reality, so have the movement of game characters, because of another technology called motion capture. It's the ultimate realization of a technique used by Walt Disney to help animators draw Snow White. Motion capture reached a new height with video games in the 90s. Motion capture electronically copies a movement, like Tiger Woods driving a golf ball, and turns it into a computer image. Wired from head to toe, every movement of a desired action, every turn and twist of a body, every arm and leg in motion is accurately copied. An earlier generation of games relied on an artist's interpretation and rendition of the body's movement. But motion capture makes every movement real, from a sword stroke to a slap shot or a slam dunk.
He makes the catch!
Added to image is the dimension of sound. The reality created in the games of today is done with voices, music, and sound effects that rival the quality of a Hollywood movie.
Oh my!
Sound studios and star voices punctuate the games.
Hell of a lot easier to get the crash site.
If today's games look, feel, and sound like major motion pictures, the very first computer game resembled a low-budget sci-fi movie. The game was called Space War. It was developed in 1962 at MIT by a graduate student named Steve Russell. Space War had only two factors in common with today's games. First, it shot something, and second, it was played on a computer. But what a computer! It was an $8 million mainframe that was used to calculate missile trajectories. It had no keyboard, no mouse, no CD-ROM, and no audio system.
Computers were big blocks of vacuum tubes and scary things where you had to communicate via punch cards or, tape with hole in it or, basically some kind of huge magnetic spool of tape. Now, all of a sudden, for the first time, you just, moved a knob or you pressed a button and the machine had to do what you wanted to do.
Space War spread from MIT to other computer labs and universities across the country on the ARPANET, the forerunner of the Internet. It was an instant hit among computer students. But Space War was unavailable to the public. After all, to play it, one needed a multi-million-dollar mainframe computer. But the inspiration and innovation for a new generation of games was let loose on the world. It would turn a game like Space War, once a mainframe computer game, into an arcade staple in just 16 years by taming the technology. In the meantime, a new group of technologists, visionaries, and entrepreneurs pioneered the concept and development of video games. One was a military defense contractor, the other an arcade game entrepreneur. From Gettysburg to desert